the need for better marketing and understanding, what tools exist to help you propel your business, because we're all accountable for results. So that's really where Advertising Academy arose from. And again, I really hope everyone can kind of look through today's presentation and keep an eye on how can we help you help your business, because businesses have changed. I've been with Spectrum Reach for over 20 years now, and I look at how my industry has changed from us going from a cable company to being a technology data company, online company, and now a cell phone company also. So again, I imagine your company has changed a lot. But also one of the biggest changes in my business has been the addition of experts. So my goal today and our goal for Advertising Academy is to engage our experts with you and see how we can help you help your business. So again, Kristen, if you want to advance to, I'll just give a brief preview of some of the other workshops in our series. So the next workshop in May will be creating content that connects. Again, the world's changed, and I can't think of any business that doesn't have the need for new messaging. So a free workshop on how to, we'll bring in our professional directors, script writers, just to give you some ideas, tips, and tricks on how to bring your business to life and better tell your story in the evolving world. And then the last workshop number 3, will be optimizing your online presence with search. Many of you are already doing search, but it never helps to learn more about search, because basically, if you're not doing search at all, or you're not doing it right, it's like not having a sign on the outside of your business, which isn't going to work. So hopefully you find those topics worthy. And just if I could go to the next slide real quick, Kristen. Lastly, I want to mention something that we want to offer special to all Amherst Chamber members and all chamber members is a big idea session. So we've done this for a few of the members, and we've done it nationwide for a lot of the biggest brands that you can think of. And it's basically think of a supercharged focus group, a big idea session. And again, this will be free of charge for anybody who wants to kind of offline this. We'll bring our experts in to perform this for your business. But basically what you'll get is a defined marketing objective, and then ideas around how to solve that marketing objective. But the best part about it is you're also going to get activations around that. And that's not just going to be activations on how to use it in media. It'll be activations on how to use it internally with your team, how to use it in your business to business emails, and just basically speaking with one voice for whatever that marketing objective will be. So I invite anyone who's interested to reach out to Olivia, AJ, or any of us, and we can help set that up for you. So with no further ado, I want to kick it over to the experts. Oh, sorry, there is further ado. Wait, there's more. Also, I just wanted to highlight right now, Spectrum Reach is offering in second quarter, so now through the end of June, a free commercial and also a 20% match for any businesses that want to take advantage and promote their business in second quarter with us, whether it be on TV, online, streaming, search, you name it. We want to help you out by giving you a free production and a 20% match on your advertising. So thank you. Now I can get to the experts. Kristen, Senior Director of Advanced Advertising, thank you for joining us today, and take it away.
Thanks, Lou. Can I just get anybody to give me a thumbs up that you can hear me? There we go. I see it. Now I'm going to try to quit looking at people, because then you're going to get my profile all day today. So hi, everyone. I am Kristen Lundbeck. Thanks for the intro, Lou. He kind of teed this up, but Spectrum Reach is the U.S.'s second largest cable and internet service provider. So over the last, year and a half, we've been busy delivering content, making sure people have the internet, lots of things that are really important to people. But at Reach, we take our portion of that world really seriously, because all we focus on is helping businesses, agencies, marketers connect their message with the people who need to see it. And if you've attended any webinar like this over the last year and a half, you've heard 20,000 times that the world has changed exponentially, so I'm just going to double down on that statement. It's changed a ton. And within the marketing and advertising space, what we know to be true is that everyone is taking a closer look at every investment that they're making, and they have to. One of the reasons for that is because it is changing so quickly. This was true pre-pandemic. I mean, in the online space, since the late 90s, there was really something new out probably every month for marketers to understand or take hold of. But in the last year and a half or so, there's been some other changes that have made a really big impact to even the traditional ways that we've advertised. So a couple of those are the proliferation of connected devices. So, you know, it kind of started with your phone, but that was just the beginning. So now your phone is smart and your TV is smart and your watches, and every connected device that you have as a consumer now becomes a connected device. As a marketer, they all become opportunities for you to get in front of someone, to get your brand touch point into a new space. So that's one piece of it. Another piece is the streaming wars. Streaming wars were heating up in 2018 and 2019, but in 2020, when people started watching a whole lot more TV because they were home more, when new content wasn't able to be developed at the time, people went deeper into libraries. And that's where you saw that the wars really heat up. I'm sure you all felt as consumers, more and more players popping up. So that's been a pretty big change when you're thinking about how you get in front of people in kind of the TV content arena. And then the third thing is time spent online. It has been increasing for years and years, but again, in the last 18 months, that was really supercharged, whether it be you're teaching from home, looking up creative lesson plans, or you're cooking more from home, you're looking up recipes. People were just spending more time online. So, you know, with all of that comes a lot of opportunities. So today, I'm going to walk you through, again, some of the biggest changes and hopefully have you walk away from today with some actionable insights. So I'm going to start with the first big change that we see. And of course, being a primarily cable and television provider deeper in our history, this is a big part of our business. But the biggest change that we've seen is that the definition of TV at its core has completely changed. So go back to connected devices. Every internet connected device can now kind of become your TV. As long as you can log into something and watch content, now consumers don't think about the fact that they're streaming or watching in a traditional way. They're just watching the show that they want to watch. So in addition to how you're getting access to the content, it's also when you're watching the content. I love and hate dating myself, but when I was in college, you know, we couldn't go out on Thursday night until Grey's Anatomy was over because there was no opportunity for us to see that again. That's totally different. So in addition to where you're watching, it's when you're watching. You can watch prime time whenever you want. You know, if for you that means 11 p.m., that's when you're able to watch your favorite shows. So again, from a consumer lens, that's awesome. I love it. It frees up my life. I can do what I want to do when I want to do it. As a marketer, that presents some really unique challenges because where I used to be able to say, I know exactly how many people in the geography that I'm targeting are going to be sitting down and watching this show on Thursday night, we don't know that anymore. And so we have to be more thoughtful about the way that we're reaching out and connecting with those consumers. So that's the first one. Now, I said first in 1 second. Second one is that there is so much more data available. The data was always being created. The change that's really happened is that organizations like us or anyone else who really looks at themselves as a technology company has figured out a way to finally wrap their arms around it and organize it in a way that makes it really useful for us as marketers. So we have, you know, and I should say, this is a question we get asked frequently. It's not about viewership at the household level. So we don't, as a company, look at Lou Costello's house and say, Lou, I see you were watching Peppa Pig this morning at 9 a.m., which he probably was, but maybe not at 9. But what we're doing is looking at de-identify, so we don't know what household it is, and we aggregate it and say, these people kind of all look alike, and they're watching this kind of programming. But TV is just one example of that, where we're looking at data. The real change is that the playing field for how you want to look at what an audience is, how big an audience is, or who they are, is that we want to get to a single measure. And that measure is really impressions. Now we're able to get to impressions across traditional media or digital media. Digital was always there, but in TV, let's say, it was more of a ratings point, might have been the currency that someone used. When we move to a single currency, so if that currency is impressions, it's going to help you as a marketer to kind of get to that apples to apples comparison about how you're touching people. You know, go back to, I no longer can have one spot reaching a certain percent of the population all of the time. I need to figure out, when I break that up, how much of the market am I actually reaching? And that's the way to really understand your one-to-one impressions. A third thing that we're seeing is that it kind of used to be, you had the digital marketing folks, and then you had the more traditional marketing folks or media people, and those silos don't really work anymore, but it's not uncommon. So if you yourself, maybe within your organizations, have different teams set up that way, or maybe you work with an agency that has their team set up that way. The challenge is that you have a group of people thinking about one set of mediums in one way, and maybe not talking to those folks that deliver your website or think about your paid search. But when you put your consumer hat on, that's all one single experience. So breaking down the silos of those things is a trend that we're seeing. We see a lot of organizational changes at some of the bigger agencies and client direct shops that we work with. And we think it's a really smart move because it's centered around the client or you know, the client, the business, whoever that might be, whichever side of the house you're on. And just to bring it to life, this is what it looks like to a consumer. You know, if I'm a breakfast shop who wants to market my business and sell more pancakes, maybe I want to get out to the marketplace and talk about who we are and where we are. So I'll put my message on television, or maybe it's streaming because it makes more sense that I zip code target, and that's the technology that allows me to do that. But from there, I want to make sure that once you've come in and you've walked in my door, I've captured some information about you because you looked at your phone while you were sitting at your table. And now what I'm able to do is connect that to, where's your computer? What does your phone look like? And so now I can say, thanks for coming in. Would you mind writing a review? Or here's a coupon. Come on back in. And our goal, your goal, hopefully, is to create a customer for life. So now we got someone to walk in the door by exposing them to your restaurant that maybe they never heard of. And then once they came in, we figured out a way to continue the dialogue with them to create a conversation. And that's always our end game. And if you can break down the silos between the different ways that you look at media and marketing, this is going to be the best possible client experience. So knowing that and thinking about it that way, I want to kind of switch to the fundamental planning components that we believe you really need to make a sound campaign. But what's going to underlie all of this is going to be, when we're marketing, thinking about being a consumer first. So what is your experience? And thinking about, as a consumer, all of the things that have changed in your year, in the last year in your life. It's where we started. You're probably streaming more. You're probably spending a bit more time online. The other thing, and I haven't touched on it much yet, but messaging. You know, in the last year and a half, it's become a really big part of our everyday lives to really think about the tone of the messages that we're getting. And there's been a couple of ways of that, whether it be, you know, staying at home, changing your messaging to talk about safety, social messaging. There's a couple different angles, but really being cognizant of what the tone of your messages is a big thing. And I'm going to look at this through the lens of video, because think about everything we just talked about. Streaming, plus online, the ability to tell a story, Video is one of those places where you can really create a story, create an emotional connection with someone very, very quickly. And our clients and customers that use video find it to be an incredibly effective solution across whatever medium you want that to be to really connect with their future customers. So if you're setting up a plan, I'm going to walk you through the steps, but some of them might seem pretty basic. I think the most important thing to remember is you don't want to skip any of them. So in the kind of excitement of marketing sometimes, we skip parts that maybe are the most fundamental. And I'll start that with the goal. So to us, the most important part of a successful marketing or media campaign is setting up your goal. So we too get really excited, but we often have clients that come to us with a really big idea, a great concept, a sexy tagline, and they're so excited about that, and we are too, because it's what we live for. It's why we got into this business. But when we start to ask some questions about what the goals are, that's where sometimes it gets a little muddier, or maybe the answers that we start to get are a little more vague than we know we should feel comfortable with. So our job usually is to not just give you what you're asking for, but to give you really what you need. And to give some recommendations on what a good goal might look like. I can't help myself but to plug brand recognition as a really important goal that shouldn't be overlooked. We often skip kind of right to conversion metrics, which are super important too, and we want to help everyone drive sales. But again, I'm going to put my consumer hat on, and in my opinion, that all starts with brand recognition. Think of your own. I'm sure, you know, if statistics are true, about 85% of you all are on Facebook, like me. So when you're scrolling through your Facebook feed, or I am, and I get served an ad, let's say for a pair of shoes that I love, they're so cute. But when I look at who served me that ad, my reality is, if I don't recognize that brand name or website, I'm nervous to even click, let alone buy from that. I'm not clicking right on that to buy the shoes. I now have to go do more research to say, how many memes have we seen of internet versus reality? So I'm thinking about, what am I going to get in the mail if I buy this shoe? Is it really going to be what I want? Now, counter that with someone who I've driven by a billboard. I've seen their ad on television. I don't really have any qualms about clicking on that, for sure not clicking on it, and then knowing what I'm going to get when I get to their website and click purchase. So to me, so many of these different conversion goals really do start with brand recognition. So a little plug there. But different goals that we see could be getting people into your store. With retail, it is often the actual purchase, but in a different category like automotive, it might be just getting bodies into the lot. You know, they know that they have a sales team and their job is to get to the next step, test drive the car, keep moving people through their funnel. So be thoughtful about what your actual goals are and stick with them. Once you know what your goals are, the next step is to really define your target audience and to be as specific as you possibly can. In the media space, we know that the way historically you've been able to buy most often is pretty broad. So we hear people often say something like adults, 18 to 54. That I often say is more like a party and less like a target. So think about who really is your audience. Building personas is a great thing to do. Tell the story of your brand around the person who's going to buy your product or service. Understanding that audience is going to really make the next steps in this process more efficient and effective for you. I will say that the company that comes to mind often, and really in the last year and a half with this, is Nike. So there's been some great stories published about some messaging that they put out in the summer of 2020. That was viewed as kind of controversial. So the example is that they used Colin Kaepernick as their talent in one of their ads and featured him. So many people were like, ooh, it's a really bold move to do that. But what Nike knew was that for their target audience, for the people that were going to buy Nike shoes and gear, that message was going to resonate in a positive way. The results were that I should have the study handy. I'm not looking at it, but eMarketer is my source. I think their sales grew by something like 30% coming off of that ad campaign. They wouldn't be able to make that bold of a move without knowing exactly who their target audience was. So because they knew so much about the audience, they're able to make something that would have a huge impact to that audience. So the other things that knowing and defining your audience can help you do is it can help you dig deeper with other data that's available. So if I know my audience is middle-aged women with 2 children who drive minivans, what I can do then is say, where do the majority of people that look like that, or women that look like that, where do they live in my geography? How can I get more specific? How can I get tighter to make the most of my dollars? When are they watching TV? When are they listening to the radio? When are they streaming? You're able to do so much more once you know who exactly that audience is. And then other things about them. What else do they enjoy? Where do they shop? This is going to help inform maybe content, content-driven targeting is going to become really important in the next year or so as the industry navigates away from cookies, which is probably a whole nother session, so I'm not going deep into that. But, if you know what your target audience likes and enjoys, that's going to really help you target more. It's also going to help you define your media rationale. So I touched on this, but knowing this woman lives in the burbs, she has 2 kids, she drives a minivan. Such a cliche. By the way, I live in the burbs and have 2 kids. I do not drive a minivan yet. But, that is a common thing. So whoever that is, it will inform how are they watching television, let's say. How are they ingesting media? And then you can work with partners like us or partners that are experts in the industry where you know that your audience is. And they can look at data and whether it be first party like we have about viewership, whether it be third party aggregated information, what they're able to do is help you say, when your target audience is watching TV, this is how they're watching it. So go back to no more appointment television. You can't just buy one spot and get everyone. They're going to help you be able to break down, based on the 5 hours a day spent watching video, this is how many hours of the day are spent here, here versus here. And so now when you're thinking about how to place a media buy or think about where you're going to get your message in front of your perfect target, we can help inform what that looks like. So this is just kind of a look at what it looks like for us. But when you're working with anyone and selecting media, what you're thinking about is something like this. So what platforms are we going to reach them on? And our data would inform. They're on Apple TV and Roku. Then what networks are they watching? This mom with 2 kids, she's a Bravo superfan. Okay. Now I really am defining myself now, but I do watch a lot of Bravo. But I want to make sure that I can get on Bravo because that is where my target audience is watching. And then where else? Are they subscribers of cable? Are they streaming our app? Where are they watching? So we're able to, and partners like us are able to, really help you navigate where you want to show up. Next step, notice we're pretty far down here. So we've thought about what our goal is, who our target audience is, how they consume media, and then we're thinking about what our messaging is. Because when you have all of that aligned, oftentimes the message, you kind of walk yourself into what that perfect message is. You know where they're watching, what they're doing. So the biggest message I have on creatives, and I know there's another session coming where we're going to go a lot deeper just on this topic. So the only kind of plug I'll put here is that consistency is really key. You want your brands to come through in different mediums in different ways. But that doesn't mean they have to be identical, and they probably shouldn't be identical. So if you're inserting, let's say, on an online video platform somewhere where the consumer is able to skip your ad after 3 or 5 seconds, let's say, well, maybe that video, your message in the first 3 to 5 seconds is pretty critical. But let's say you're inserting in the streaming space where we've all lived through, you hit the fast forward button 600 times, but you can't get through that commercial any faster. You have that full 30 seconds to tell your message. So you have some flexibility, and you want to be smart about the way or where within, let's say, video, that you're getting your core message across. So be thoughtful about that specifically. And then at that point, you've done the work, and so you're ready to activate. And that's the exciting part, and you get to see kind of all of the results coming in, hopefully. But I will say, there are a couple things you want to make sure that you have set up before you go live with anyone and with your primary partners. The one is have a discussion about how you're going to measure before you're measuring it. So a big best practice is know what your kind of dashboard or know what you're measuring before you go live. If you set up your goals up front, which should have been your first step in this is going to be a pretty easy thing to do. In fact, it's probably a part of the discussion when you're setting up your goal is, great, is that something that we can actually measure? Who is going to measure that? How frequently are they going to measure that? And how is it going to come through to me? So define that stuff up front. Have a discussion about brand safety. So what is appropriate content to your brand? It's different for everyone. So that is not one size fits all, and no one wants any surprises where the owner of a business or an agency client or something is not happy with being next to content that they don't deem appropriate. And fraud-free. So brand safety has a couple different angles to it, making sure that there's a plan against fraudulent activity and also around what the messaging is. And then last but not least, very much connected to the measurement, but transparency is so important. So what does your actual report look like? Can you see a sample of what that is? What information comes through to you so that you can really be able to make the best decisions to move your business forward? And then it's the fun. Then you're watching it. My last plug on this is give campaigns enough time to work. Often, you launch, everyone is so excited, and they're looking for results in the first day or two. And if you have a killer offer or coupon, sometimes that happens, but often it can take a number of weeks to really start to feel when a campaign is live in the market. And in addition to giving it a little bit of time, also don't forget to continue to come back to your goal. Changing your goal in flight or in campaign is just going to confuse everybody and kind of not know what the target is. So make sure that if you set a goal up front, you're sticking with it, at least for the duration of the campaign. And if you find that goal was not actually what you wanted to measure, you have an opportunity to change that the next time around. So that is what I have for you today. I hope you got something new out of this, and I'd love to hear what questions you have. I'm going to quit sharing.
Question. So you actually, you were just touching on it, on campaign time and being patient. What is the recommended time to wait to see, is your goal being reached? Is it, and do you ever find, so second part of the question, do you ever find, okay, maybe this isn't the right time for this? Do you ever put a pause on it? Let's get back to this in a month or so.
Ooh, the pause, I think never was a truer time of that than 2020. I mean, so yes, of course, like we saw that in a big way where it could have been just something like your business was still viable and you could still market. It was just that you instantly knew that the creative you were running was not right. And you had to put a pause to that to reassess and make sure that you were talking to the market the way it needs to be addressed. And that was just one very extreme example, but that happens for a number of different reasons across different industries. Timing-wise, I think you do have to look at that by medium. So within the video and what your goal is. So if you have more of a conversion goal where you're asking people to buy now, and let's say there's a limited time offer, you usually want to see that. I would look at your kind of percent of the length of time that you have it set up. So, if you're a furniture store that has a 3-day sale, but it's like mega offers and you put out really good incentives, you need to see an impact to that in a day or two. Conversely, if you're really trying to build brand awareness, build a base of customers, that's going to take time. So if you're setting that up over a quarter, think about not making moves for at least a quarter of that campaign. So, you know, that's probably not before the first month or so is when you're starting to look at things.
Thank you. We do have a question in the chat box on, can you talk more about OTT?
So here's what I could talk for probably 4 days about OTT. Yes. So why don't I do this if I can't see the chat pod, but if there's anything more specific, or if someone would like to even do kind of a big idea session on OTT, I think we'd all be happy to do that at Spectrum. That would be great.
Fantastic. Another question, how do you establish a budget for your marketing?
That is a great question. There's the marketing budget. We are often looking at the media budget. So I think I want to answer based on that media portion and just kind of take out that marketing budget can mean a lot of different things with websites and depending what you view that cost at. But for media, or at least media allocation, let me answer it from that lens. We are always starting with who is your target and then how are they consuming media. So to break up a budget by looking at, if you're targeting someone that looks like Kristen, how am I consuming media as a percent of my day, as a percent of my time, and then breaking up our investments to align with that. We also tend to, if it's not time of day kind of things like paid search, we often do look at what kind of the industry averages are as well, to say there's a ton of research that helps you understand how are many businesses breaking up their budget, looking at some averages, and then layering in what the nuances of your individual category could be. Certain categories are, I'm going to use search as an example, but if you're a personal injury attorney, bidding to be #1 on Google is incredibly expensive. So maybe your percent of your total budget doesn't look the same as a local retailer or something like that.
Hey, Kristen, can I follow up on that too? So, I mean, it's a great question, and we get it all the time. Again, I think one thing that I would suggest that Kristen kind of touched on is different industries. It's all different, right? So you mentioned personal injury attorneys. They're looking at a cost per case, cost per lead. In auto, it's cost per conversion, things like that. I think, one thing that I would just highlight is, as a marketer, really look at what you're looking for in regards to a return on investment. And then I can't stress enough, again, we get questions all the time on how much should I spend on this? What the tactics that Kristen kind of walked through earlier about, if you follow those steps and really go through each step of that process, the cloud should kind of dissipate a little, and you can kind of get a little more clear idea of how much should I be spending on this. Because again, to Kristen's point, finding out who your target is, how are they consuming media, is very, very important. Because if you're looking to reach an 18-year-old and you're spending all your money on Facebook, they're not there. So really looking at how your consumer consumes media, and then that'll drive where to reach them. I can't highlight that point enough. So great question.
One last question that we have, and just so you know, they're being sent to me directly. How do you balance Spectrum advertising versus our local channels that are advertising?
I think, do you think that means like broadcast channels?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Lou, do you want to take that one more?
Yeah, I could take it. You could add on where I'm missing, but again, just kind of following up on what I just talked about. So one of the greatest things that we have, and we're going to be talking more about that after these questions with Jim Vesterling on measuring analytics. It's all about the data, right? So it's looking at, for us, Kristen mentioned earlier, we have first-party data. Nobody has more first-party viewership data in any community across the country than the cable company, because we're measuring every second of viewing, no matter whether it's on our networks, on broadcast networks, on apps, streaming, wherever consumers are consuming content, we measure it. And it's not a, the old way was an extrapolation of multiple data sets and then we're going to project the number. It's one-to-one data. We're literally able to drill in by all subscribers and see exactly how they're watching. So to that point, and again, just to kind of further what we're talking about, defining who you're looking to target and then understanding, is that a broadcast viewer or is that a, somebody who has time shifted viewing, and are they both, and how much of my budget should I allocate there? I guess I'll tie it all up in a knot by saying, let the data lead the way. And if your provider can't provide you with data, that's probably an issue.
That's all the questions that we have in the box.
Right. Great. Awesome. So I want to first of all thank everyone for their attentiveness. Thank you, Kristen Lundbeck. Again, Kristen and our entire team are available if you want to offline. Again, just to mention what Kristen mentioned, she can talk for 4 days about OTT and streaming. She's lying. We could probably talk about 4 years about OTT and streaming. She was being modest because there's so much noise out there in this space. And again, what I would say again is let the data lead the way. So, if Kristen's available, Jim Vesterling's available. If anyone wants to have that further conversation, we can definitely do that. Happy to do so. So with that, I'm going to kind of kick it over to the second portion, which covered what Kristen talked about at the end of her tactics, which was measurement. Everybody on this call, as the world has evolved and our time in our careers has evolved, we've been held more accountable than ever, right? More accountable to results. The way the world is with data is they're holding us accountable to results. So we want to give you some tactics and some techniques on how to better hold your vendors and yourselves accountable to results, so that you can look good to whoever you need to report to, or look good to your bottom line. And Google Analytics, for anyone who's online, there's a great scoreboard available to all of you. We're going to give you some techniques on how to better use that. So with that, I'm going to kick it over to our advanced advertising manager, Jim Vesterling.
All right, thank you, Lou. So what's great about what Lou is saying is let data lead the way. That's before, and then it's also after and during your campaign. So even Kristen touched on that. It's really like the scorecard, and it's really the way to judge and manage your campaigns. And what's great is that if you have a website, there's a good chance you have Google Analytics. So this is going to be very relevant to you. The first thing I'll say is, if you don't have access to your Google Analytics, go to your web provider, ask them for the access. They should have no issues giving it to you. And really, once you get in there, there's a great way to there's great ways to really inform your business. So with having Google Analytics, you can inform your marketing strategy. And if you know what to look for, you can really look at every campaign that you're running by tactic, by vendor. As long as everything's tagged correctly, you should be able to break down exactly how each one of those digital marketing campaigns are performing, and then make business decisions on where you should be spending your money, right? Like the best way to kind of look at everything is by vendor and by tactic. So overall, you want to make sure that everything is working kind of synergistically. Your television's not going to be able to be, explicitly like pulled out in the analytics, but your organic traffic, your direct traffic. And we're going to cover a little bit of kind of how to go through, and we'll get to the top 5 checklist. But really, like looking at each individual campaign and tactic and vendor is the best way to kind of judge every campaign that you're running. But what's also cool is that you can learn more about your website visitors. So you can take that information out of Google Analytics and then use that in marketing campaigns. So if you're an HVAC company, for an example, right? But you also do plumbing services, and your plumbing pages are getting a ton more traffic. Maybe you should try to tailor your campaigns and really focus in on the plumbing aspect of your business. There's a ton of different ways to kind of utilize the website visitors and look at the individual demographics, and then maybe tailor your television campaigns to reach certain demographics, right? But you can also use the keywords that people are coming organically to your website. So if they're not going directly to spectrumreach.com, or they're not typing in local cable company, maybe they're typing in, where do I get internet service, right? Where do I find any product and service? It doesn't really matter. But what's great about Google Analytics is it shows you the individual keywords that are mostly driving the traffic to your website organically. But then also you can develop the creative based on the most active pages on your website. I touched on this a little earlier, but when you kind of look at how everything breaks down, you're able to then say, I want to be able to target, I want to find this creative and align it with this audience, right? So when you dig into Google Analytics, and if you haven't been in there yet, it's a ton of information, right? But what's great is that advertising partners like Spectrum Reach, they should be digging in this with you. So really, the best thing you can do for yourself is give your analytics read-only access to each one of your vendors that is running a digital campaign or even a standard television campaign. Make sure that you're giving them access, because really what a good partner would do for you is they're going to sit down or virtually walk through Google Analytics with you and show you their campaign performance and break it down for you. They should also be doing this consistently throughout the campaign. So they should be looking at it, and this is what Spectrum Reach does, looks at the campaigns as they're running, and then will make recommendations on changing different aspects of your campaign, or hey, this is really doing well for you, we should double down on this, or hey, this is not performing where we'd like it to be, we can make some adjustments on our end, right? But these virtual and in-person walkthroughs should be happening. And in person, I understand right now might not be the best case unless everybody's vaccinated, and we can go from there. But really, the best way to do this is find a partner, an advertising partner that can be able to walk through this with you and understand what they're looking at, right? So what should they be doing? They should be looking at your marketing investments, driving and looking at all the traffic that's going to your website and making sure that it's geographically correct, but also too that it's actually completing goals for you. And we'll talk a little bit about the goals in a little bit, but reviewing key metrics, optimizing campaigns, and then also confirming the tagging's correct. So when you look at Google Analytics, and we'll jump into the demo account, you can see how confusing it is if the tagging is not correct, right? So there's a ton that we can go through with Google Analytics, but we did come up with top 5 checklists, right? So what I'm going to do is kind of jump into Google Analytics and show kind of each one of these quick steps. And this is the first things that I would do if I was looking at anybody's Google Analytics, kind of right off the bat, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the first one, and I'm going to jump into Google Analytics, is review traffic by source. Does anything stand out? So I'm going to jump into Google Analytics here. This is the Google Analytics homepage, right? Already, there's a ton of information, but the best thing you can do for yourself right off the bat is click on acquisition, all traffic, and then source medium. So source medium is basically if you have all your taken, if the advertising partners have all the taken correctly, it should say Spectrum/display or Spectrum/video, right? And this is kind of how it'll work out. Direct, like I said before, is when someone types in spectrumreach.com and goes directly to your website. If it's Google, right, it'll say Google Organic right here, or Google CPC, and Google CPC is actually the Google paid search ads that I think we'll be kind of talking about in session 3. But this is the best way to kind of look at your traffic, right, by vendor and by tactic. What you don't want to see is not set/not set or anything that's not set, because this is vital information on each one of your campaigns. If one of your advertising partners, if their traffic is coming in as not set, you can't accurately judge what that traffic is doing for your business, right? So you want to make sure that all of this is straightforward. Direct and none is fine. Anything Google is fine. But when you see it says partner/affiliate, this demo account is basically saying this should say Spectrum and then also some sort of medium, right? So it's going to be online video or display or whatever tactic you're using. So going back to the presentation, what is the behavior? I always look at the behavior of the traffic on your website, right? So what you can do is go into behavior and then just an overview. right? And you can change the dates for this and you can compare it to last year. So if you run a different vendor in 2020 or 2019 and you're running a new vendor right now, you can kind of compare the traffic against what happened before and what happens now. And I would always do it year over year and not necessarily quarter after quarter, because everybody's business is likely going to be seasonal for the most part. So you want to make sure that you're actually accurately looking at what happened in, say, Q2 or April of last year versus April of this year. You want to make sure that you're doing this the right way. But what's great about this view is that you can look at all the pages that are getting the most traffic on your website. So if we're looking at homepage, is always probably going to be number one, but maybe you have a business that sells baskets in this case, if you can read that, right? Or you have an online store. What is getting the most traffic on your website? And that's how you'll go then and say, okay, I am actually seeing the most traffic to my my card selection, right? If you're sports card collectors, right? And you could look at, oh, the NFL cards are actually getting the most traffic. Maybe I should advertise more of the NFL cards, right? So looking at this page is a good way to kind of get a quick view of what traffic is going to your website, but then also what's getting the most traffic, what pages are getting the most traffic. All right, so number 3, conversion goals. Are they working? This is vital, right? So if you go back to this page, over on the right are where your conversion goals are. And if you don't have these set up, we can work together and get these set up for you. If I only have read access, I'm not able to generate these. So we, would be more of an in-person thing or over a Zoom, and we can kind of work through how that works. But you're able to kind of see, okay, if someone filled out a form, you could then see where that person came from. They come from direct. Was it from your television campaign, or was it from your display campaign that you're running through Spectrum Reach? And you can judge campaigns based on where they end up and if they complete your goals. So this could be a campaign, a contact us form, or if you want to make sure that they go to your contact page and you're looking at a phone number, you can assign this to any website, a part of your website, and make sure that each one of your vendors and each one of your tactics are showing that you're completing goals. It's the best way to really judge any campaign that you're running. All right, number 4, where is your traffic coming from? Is it local? So the number one thing that I usually find with any other vendors that I'm looking at is sometimes the traffic is just not, and I'm dealing with this here, is just not coming from a local source. You want your traffic to be to where your customers are. If a vendor or someone is driving traffic that's from outside of where you do business, it's not effective. So you want to make sure that you're able to look at the traffic by geolocation. So by doing that, you're going to go into audience and then drop down to geo here and then click on location. And it'll bring up basically by country. And what you're able to do is look at all the traffic and keep on drilling into, okay, I'm in California and I'm in Sunnyvale, right? So you can see where all the traffic is coming from. But if there's a ton of traffic that's coming from basically any source, any areas that you don't do business in, you have to kind of look at optimizing those campaigns, or look at and talk to your vendors and say, hey, I'm seeing a lot of traffic that's coming from outside of my area of business. We need to be able to make sure that we're tailoring the campaign that way. Then the 5th one, what is the behavior of the paid traffic on your business website? So you can go to the next level, and we might be going into to the 201, but what I want to make sure is that you can make sure that you can look at the behavior flow. So most likely, and you can do this by vendor, by tactic, you can look at where are they ending up. And when you build out a campaign, you want to make sure that you're aligning the creative to the website, to the part of the website that is actually tied to the creative. So again, if you're an HVAC company, you want to make sure that if you're doing plumbing ads, you want them to end up on the plumbing page. But for the most part, if you're doing a general branding campaign, it's totally fine to have people go to the website, the homepage, right? So homepage is usually the number one, but then where do they go from there, right? I want to make sure that there's a thing called a bounce rate, that they're just not leaving right away, that they're engaging with the website. That's a great way to also tell if people are spending a lot of time on your site and they're also moving around to different pages, and how are they doing that? You can really make a lot of decisions and really kind of be smart about how you're marketing and who you're working with too. So this behavior flow page, it looks like Spider-Man made it. I understand that, but it's a great way to kind of see how people move through the pages. And on this demo account, it's a little harder to kind of to show it, but when we are able to dig into your Google Analytics, we'll be able to easily see how people move through your website. So with that, I thank you. I know there was a lot of information, but what we'd love to do is have you reach out to me. We can schedule a time to kind of go through everything, and I can dig into analytics and see really what you're doing with all your vendors. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim. I just want to, one thing I want to add, you know, again, that's for those who are in Google Analytics all day, that's, you know, that might look familiar. For some of us who aren't, that looks like you said, Jim, like Spider-Man created that. Like, what does that mean? But with that being said, again, you know, we talk to advertisers in every category you can think of. If your vendor is not doing this for you, find a new vendor. If your vendor is not, you know, one thing too is it's one thing to look at Google Analytics, but also, you know, I know a lot of us on this call, no matter what industry you're in, you don't have time to sit in front of your Google Analytics for hours every day and then bring into your boss, hey, that marketing campaign that we're doing, it's working because I found it in, like, also what I would also say with your vendors is if they're not reporting on it for you at least monthly, and that's where, you know, to Kristen's point of setting those goals before you embark on a campaign. And then at the end, making sure that they're reporting on that. Is it working? And also with that, I would say, simplify it. You know, it's one thing to talk bounce rate and, you know, a lot of jargon, and that's good. But for a lot of us who are busy and need highlines, ask your vendor to simplify that for you and say, that's great. Why does it matter? That, you know, that's great that they're spending this amount of time on my site. Is that a good metric? Tell me why that matters. And again, you're held accountable, hold your vendors accountable. So with that, thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Jim. And I'll turn it back over to you, Olivia. Yep.
Wow. I do never do that. So thanks. Thank you again, Spectrum Reach for joining us today. We do have our president and CEO, AJ Baines, on just to close out this session today.
Thanks, Liv, and thank you to Spectrum and the team. You guys have been unbelievable partners for us here at the Chamber, and I want to thank everyone for joining us today. We're really excited about the partnership that we have with Spectrum Reach, and I think the information that they provided, I jumped in about 8 minutes into the first presentation, so I'm sorry I missed the intro. But the information that they provide is always top notch. And I think their ability to access data and provide you with quality data and quality information is pretty much unmatched in the space. We have several chamber members who are currently working with them, not only from a rebranding standpoint, but a strategic standpoint in how to place digital media efficiently from a cost standpoint, because that's, I think, the biggest thing. And part of the reason why I was late, I was on another call with Business First. Companies are being asked to do a lot more with a lot less, and Spectrum recognizes that, and what they're willing to do for our chamber members, working with you with roundtable discussions, looking at your brand as a whole, providing you with data for your audiences and to figure out where do you need to market and where do you need to place your information. And then more importantly, at the end with Jim's presentation, just how do I really take in if it's working, and trying to acknowledge that, okay, they'll walk you through some of those steps. So my shameless plug for them is that, you know, take advantage of them. That's we have so many chamber members right now that are just thrilled with the fact that they're willing to put these teams around at no cost to you. So I think that's something that hasn't been normally been given out around here, and they're not biased towards anything. They're open to good ideas, and their group is very personable and they're sincere about it. They're not looking for you to purchase through them. They want to help businesses thrive because they recognize, like we do here at the Chamber, we need to create a better economy and a more prosperous economy for Western New York. And as we come through this pandemic, we know the roaring 20s are just on the other side here. So hopefully everybody gets vaccinated, stays healthy, and does what they need to do so we can reopen this economy. So Liv, I thank you for filling in for me on the beginning here. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you,
Thanks.
everyone.
Have a great day and a great weekend coming up.
All right.
Thank you.